The house felt too quiet after Dad died, not peaceful, empty, like the walls themselves were holding their breath, waiting for him to walk back in and complain about the lights being left on. His shoes were still by the door, his mug was still in the sink. Every object felt like a reminder that he had existed and that he was gone. I hadn't slept properly in 3 nights, between hospital paperwork, funeral arrangements, and relatives calling just to hear themselves talk. My body was running on fumes. Grief made time feel warped, minutes dragged, hours disappeared. That night, close to midnight, I sat alone on my bed, phone glowing in my hands, scrolling without really seeing anything. I wasn't looking for distraction, I was just trying to survive the silence. That's when my phone buzzed. Payment received. I frowned. I hadn't sold anything. I hadn't asked anyone for money. Another buzz followed. And another. Curious, confused, and suddenly uneasy. I tapped the notification. It opened to a fundraising app I barely used. At first, I thought it was a mistake, maybe spam. Maybe someone else's alert routed wrong. Then I saw the title. Help my name lay her father to rest. My chest tightened. I stared at the screen, my fingers cold. The fundraiser had my full name, my profile photo, even a picture of Dad, one I had posted privately years ago. The description talked about my pain, my struggle, my inability to afford the funeral. It spoke in my voice, as if I had written it myself. As if I had begged, I hadn't. Donations were pouring in. Messages from strangers filled the page. Stay strong. Your father would be proud. We're praying for you. My stomach twisted into something sharp and ugly. Before I could even process it, my phone rang, an aunt I barely spoke to, then a cousin, then someone from Dad's old workplace. They all said the same thing. We saw your fundraiser. You're so brave. Don't worry, family is here for you. I wanted to scream. Between calls, I clicked deeper into the page. The organizer's name wasn't mine. It belonged to my uncle. The bank account linked to the fundraiser wasn't mine either. Not a single dollar was coming to me. My hands started shaking, not from grief this time, but from something colder, something heavier. By morning, the house filled with relatives. They moved through my grief like it belonged to them, whispering, sighing loudly, putting on performances of sorrow. My uncle pulled me aside, his voice low and urgent. You need to send us some cash, he said. People donated because of you. We're handling everything. I looked at him, stunned. I didn't ask for this. I didn't even know about it. He waved a dismissive hand. Don't make this difficult. It's for your father. That sentence hit harder than any slap. Later, alone again, I refreshed the fundraiser page. The total had jumped overnight, thousands now. And yet, when I checked the funeral invoices spread across my table, none of it had been paid. The math didn't add up. That's when it clicked. This wasn't generosity gone wrong. This wasn't family helping in their own messy way. This was my grief being used as a tool. My name turned into a weapon. My father's death turned into profit. I locked my phone and sat very still. They thought I was too broken to notice, too sad to question, too weak to fight. They were wrong, and somewhere deep beneath the ache in my chest, beneath the tears I hadn't finished crying yet, something else began to wake up. Not anger, not rage, awareness. By the second day after Dad's death, grief had stopped feeling soft. It hardened into something sharp, something that pressed against my ribs every time I breathed. I told myself it was still grief doing this tightness, this sudden clarity. But deep down I knew better. What hurt most now wasn't loss, it was betrayal. The house filled again that afternoon, the same familiar faces wearing the same practiced sympathy. They spoke quietly, shook their heads, clutched tissues they didn't really need. I watched them from the corner of the room, noticing details I had missed before: how often my uncle checked his phone, how my cousin whispered to my aunt and smiled, how none of them mentioned actual funeral costs. When I finally brought up the fundraiser, the room shifted. I didn't create it. I said carefully, "And the money isn't coming to me." The air went cold. My uncle sighed, long and exaggerated, like I had inconvenienced him. "We did it to help you. Don't twist it into something ugly." Then why wasn't I told? I asked. My voice didn't shake. That surprised me. My cousin crossed her arms. Because you were emotional. We didn't want to burden me. I pulled out my phone and showed them the page. My name, my photo, my pain written like a script. People think I asked for this, and they donated. My aunt snapped. So what's the problem? The way she said it made my skin crawl. You need to transfer some of that money to us, my uncle said, lowering his voice again. We've been managing things. Funeral halls, food, transportation. You should be grateful. I asked for receipts. The word landed like a grenade. Faces tightened. Eyes shifted. You don't trust your own family. My cousin asked, loud enough for others to hear. That was when the emotional blackmail began. They talked about Dad, how disappointed he'd be, how family unity mattered, how I was dishonoring his memory by questioning them. Each sentence was designed to push me back into my place. Quiet, obedient, guilty. I almost gave in. Almost. Grief makes you crave peace, even when peace is a lie. But then I checked the fundraiser again. The total had risen dramatically, and late. Night withdrawals showed up, multiple ones. Small enough to avoid suspicion, frequent enough to matter. None matched funeral expenses. None matched dates they had mentioned. When I asked about the withdrawals, my uncle's kindness vanished. You're being selfish, he said flatly. People donated because they felt sorry for you. Don't pretend this is about principle. That was the moment I truly saw them. Not as family, not as mourners, but as people who had seen an opportunity wrapped in tragedy and taken it without hesitation. That night I couldn't sleep. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone in hand, replaying every conversation. Every comment, every demand. A message popped up from an old friend, someone who worked in finance. I saw the fundraiser. Something feels off. Have you checked who's withdrawing the funds? I typed back slowly. Not yet, but I will. The house was dark. Everyone else slept easily, confident I would break by morning. Confident I would hand over cash and swallow my doubts like I always had. They didn't know me anymore. I opened my laptop and began to dig. Not angrily, not loudly, but carefully. I wasn't looking for revenge yet. I was looking for truth, and with every click, every record, every hidden detail I uncovered, the fog of grief lifted just enough for me to see one thing clearly. They hadn't just used my name. They had underestimated me, and that mistake would cost them far more than they imagined. The truth didn't arrive with noise or drama. It came quietly at 2:17 a.m., wrapped in a soft vibration against my palm. Withdrawal processed. I stared at the notification for a long moment, my heart thudding in my ears. The house was silent. No voices, no footsteps, no pretending. Just me, the dark, and a truth that no one else realized I was close to uncovering. I didn't panic. I didn't cry. I followed the alert. Using a password recovery option my uncle had been careless enough to leave open, I accessed the fundraiser's backend. What appeared on the screen made my stomach drop, not because it surprised me, but because it confirmed everything I already felt. There it was, a list of withdrawals, clean and organized, dates, times, amounts, recipient accounts. Not funeral homes, not service providers, personal accounts, my uncle's, my cousin's, an account under my aunt's name. Some withdrawals were labeled funeral advance, others had no labels at all. The amounts varied, small enough to avoid triggering donor concern, frequent enough to drain the fund quietly. I cross-checked dates with invoices spread across my desk. They didn't align. Payments had been made on nights when no services were booked. Withdrawals happened after midnight when no one would be watching. I took screenshots every page. Every transaction, every linked account. Then I scrolled further. They had edited the fundraiser description multiple times, each version more emotional than the last. Phrases like alone, abandoned, and no support had been added strategically, even while they slept under my roof and ate food neighbors brought for us. The worst part came next, private organizer messages. They joked about how quickly people donated, about how tragedy sells, about how using my face made it more believable. One message made my chest ache in a way grief hadn't managed to do all week. She won't check. She's too broken. I closed my eyes and let the words sit there. Not to hurt me, but to fuel me. This wasn't impulsive greed. This was planned, rehearsed, executed with confidence. I didn't scream. I didn't wake anyone. I didn't confront them again. I made a folder on my desktop and named it Dad. Inside it, I placed every screenshot, every bank trail, every edited description, every donor message thanking me for my bravery. I downloaded timestamps. I backed everything up twice. Then I did something they would never expect. I waited. Over the next day. I played my role perfectly. Quiet, cooperative, still grieving. When my uncle asked if I had thought about the money, I nodded. When my cousin reminded me how expensive funerals were, I listened. All the while, my inbox filled with donor messages. Confused ones now. People asking why the fundraiser description had changed again, why comments were being deleted, why no funeral updates were posted. I replied to none of them. Instead, I drafted something else. Emails, reports, a timeline. Clear, factual, emotion, free. By the time night fell again, everything was ready. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger would have made this messy. Sloppy, what I felt now was calm. They thought the late night alerts were harmless. They thought darkness meant safety. They thought silence meant weakness. They didn't realize the late night alert wasn't just a withdrawal. It was a confession, and tomorrow the truth would speak louder than any of them ever had. Morning arrived without drama. No shouting, no slammed doors, just sunlight spilling through the curtains, touching the same walls that had heard my father laugh. I made tea steady and unhurried while my phone rested face down on the table. Everything that needed to be done was already in motion. At 9:04 a.m., the first response came in. The fundraising platform thanked me for my detailed report and confirmed they had temporarily frozen the account pending investigation. Donations were paused, withdrawals blocked. I exhaled for the first time in days. By noon, donors began receiving notifications: polite, neutral, undeniable. This fundraiser is under review due to reported inconsistencies. Questions flooded the comments section. Screenshots I hadn't posted appeared anyway. Truth has a way of finding daylight. The house shifted. My uncle's voice rose in the hallway. My cousin slammed a door. Phones rang unanswered. When they confronted me, there was no fire left in them, only panic wrapped in forced smiles. "Why would you do this?" my aunt whispered, as if fear itself might hear her. I told the truth. I replied. My voice surprised even me. It didn't shake, that's all. By evening, the platform made its decision. The fundraiser was officially shut down. Remaining funds were set to be refunded to donors. A separate verified payment option was offered for direct funeral expenses, transparent, traceable, and controlled. My phone lit up nonstop. Apologies came first, soft ones, then frantic ones, then angry ones. They blamed misunderstandings, stress, grief, anything but themselves. When that didn't work, they begged. "Please," my uncle said, his voice cracking, "this will ruin us." I thought of Dad, of his quiet pride, of the way he taught me that integrity wasn't loud. It was consistent. "I didn't ruin anything," I said. "You did." That night, I posted a short public statement. No accusations, no insults, just facts. I thanked donors for their kindness, clarified that the fundraiser had been created without my consent, and shared the correct way to honor my father's memory. The response was overwhelming, supportive, respectful, clean. The funeral was held 3 days later. Paid for properly, in Dad's name, not theirs. They didn't sit near me. They didn't meet my eyes. Their silence felt heavier than any apology could have. After everyone left, I stood alone by his grave. The air was still, the noise of betrayal finally gone. "I protected your name," I whispered, "and mine. Sweet revenge doesn't scream. It doesn't humiliate. It doesn't need witnesses. It lets the truth do the work. It walks away clean, and it leaves nothing for guilt to argue with." As I turned to leave, my phone buzzed one last time. a donation confirmation for a small charity Dad had loved. Made anonymously, made honestly, for the first time since he'd passed, I smiled, not because I had won, but because I had healed,